What's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. Positioning is one of the most important things to consider in a match because good positioning can completely make or break your chances of winning the point, even if your team is skilled at each of their champions. I'll be going over a few ways you can improve your positioning in your matches and a few positioning mistakes that can get yourself and even your other teammates killed. This video will mainly focus on the damage class since positioning isn't as important with tanks, supports, or flanks, but some of these tips can still apply and should definitely be considered when playing any champion. So without further ado, let's get into some of the ways you can improve your positioning in Paladins. The biggest and worst mistake you can make with your positioning is standing too close to your teammates. While standing within line of sight of your other teammates so they can help you if you need it is a really good strategy to employ in your positioning, standing directly next to them is an absolutely terrible idea, especially if the enemy team has any AoE champions. By standing right next to someone, the enemy team can have a really easy time killing both of you if they have a blast champion like Drogoz, a champion that can easily spray a bunch of bullets your way like Victor or Leon, or a strong flank like Buck or Maeve. By standing next to each other, you are also taking the same line of sight as your teammate on the objective, unless you're aiming down one of the flanking routes to suppress a flanker, which reduces the number of angles your team holds on the objective. If an enemy tank puts up a shield in your direction, or an enemy hides behind a wall and prevents your damage from hitting them, and you're sitting right next to one of your teammates, you also just negated their damage as well, so the enemy champion you're trying to kill is immune to 2/5 of your entire team's damage. If, instead, you didn't stand right next to your teammate and took a different angle on the objective, the enemy champion would have a much harder time avoiding damage. Standing next to one teammate is pretty bad, but an even worse way you can screw up your positioning is to let your entire team all stand either in a straight line or a tight group that can be easily destroyed by a well-placed ult or some other high damage ability. If you see 3 or 4 of your teammates all grouped up really tightly, or you yourself are part of such a close group, your bad positioning can be easily punished by a good team that surrounds your tight grouping and shoots at you from a whole bunch of different angles, or uses an ult ranging from Inara's Seismic Crash, to Sky's Time Bomb, to Bomb King's King Bomb. While it's perfectly fine for you and your teammates to be generally near each other, if you all get too close together and get cleaned up by the enemy team in a few seconds while minimizing the angles you hold on the objective, you're going to lose. It's as simple as that. Another huge mistake with your positioning occurs when your team is losing the objective. The enemy team is trying to zone you out, and your team needs to make a rush for the point. If you're on a map like Stone Keep where you know most of the enemy team is looking through the far door on your side of the map, waiting to spray their clips into your face when you come out of it, don't make the mistake a lot of people do by going out of that door. While it seems like common sense, I've seen stuff like this happen more times than I'd like to count. Also, unless your team is about to lose the game if you don't rush the point as quickly as possible, don't go in against the entire enemy team alone expecting a pentakill and to save the point, because it almost never works out that way. If you wait for just a few seconds for a few more of your teammates to get back to the point, you'll actually stand a chance trying to recapture or defend instead of you charging in alone unnecessarily. While this tip has less to do with positioning than the others, it's still really important to remember because I've seen this happen way too many times. When you're positioning yourself, you want to take into consideration 4 main factors: your range, the enemy team's general range, good lines of sight to the objective, and the enemy flank routes. Positioning yourself based off your range is pretty easy and straightforward. If you're a sniper, you want to sit far behind with a wide view of the objective and enemy flank routes in your peripherals. Mid-range champions like Victor and Leon stick back closer to the supports, and the champions that do well in close quarters like Drogoz or Bomb King should be closer to the objective. However, you also have to consider the enemy team's range when choosing your position. If the enemy team has a Kinessa and a Shaolin, for instance, which are 2 very strong champions at long to mid-range, you either want to fight them at long range if you're playing a champion like Strix or Grover that can contest them pretty effectively from a distance, or get close enough to make their superiority at range ineffective if you're playing a champion like Drogoz. Trying to contest such a composition like that at long range with a champion that is completely ineffective at long range like Tyra will not work, so keep that into consideration if you go against such a team. If the enemy team is extremely strong at mid to close range, however, outranging them can be a good plan. If you're going against a Drogoz and a Cassie that can delete you in under 2 seconds if you get too close to them, and you're playing someone like Shaolin or Victor, stay quite a distance away to have the best chances against them. In general, try to stay far enough away from enemies that excel in close quarters so that they won't be as big a threat to you as normal, but don't go so far away from any champion so that your weapon becomes ineffective and an enemy that's superior at range can gun you down with ease. Playing a damage champion is all about holding a strong line of sight on the objective and gunning down any enemy who tries to get on the point, so positioning yourself to get a good angle on the objective is key. The high ground is almost always your friend, because most of the time fighting an enemy on the high ground from the low ground is a huge struggle. If you can secure a strong foothold on the high ground of the map you're on, with a good angle on the objective so you can kill the tank and any other champions with ease, then it's over, Anakin. However, if you get flanked and lose your vantage point on the objective, your team will have a much harder time capturing or pushing with one less strong angle on the objective, which is why you also need to consider where the enemy flanks will be coming from and choose a position where you can best deal with the flanks or prevent them from even reaching your back line. For instance, if you're on your way to the objective on Frog Isle, and you know that the enemy's flanks are all going to be coming from the one flank route on the lower side of the map off the objective, then take up a position where you can easily see them coming from that side of the map, and can send a bunch of bullets, bombs, or arrows their way, and keep them from flanking your team. If you're playing a damage champion, you need to fully expect to be flanked, unless the enemy team has no flanks, and even still, you need to be on the lookout for one of the tanks, a damage champion, or Pip to come your way. Since you know that someone is going to try and flank you, taking up a position where you can either see them coming, will be able to easily fight them, or can escape before the fight's even started, will make you much harder to flank, and will give you a huge advantage during the match. If you hold a position where your weapon is effective, you can suppress or avoid the enemy damage champions, have a good line of sight on the objective, and can either cut off a flank on his way to the backlines, have an easy time fighting a flank, or have an escape route for when a flank comes your way. You'll have a huge advantage in your matches and have a much easier time capturing the objective, pushing the payload, and winning the game. If you also remember not to stand directly next to your teammates, and don't let your team get into a tight group where they can be easily surrounded and killed, you'll be sure to win more matches. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Did this video help you learn how to better position yourself in Paladins? If so, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to see more content like this from me. Also, if you have any suggestions for a top 5 list, tutorial, or loadout to try, be sure to either leave a comment or join my Discord server using the code in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.